this BTW Bellabeat Talks Wellness podcast episode. Today we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Smita Patel. She is on our board of experts here at Bellabeat, and she is also triple board certified in neurology, sleep medicine, and integrative medicine. Dr. Patel, hello and welcome.
Hello, welcome, Dr.
Thank you so much for being with me.
Welcome. And just to kick off the conversation, could you actually, talk about your expertise and your special fields of interest? Just explain them to our audience and, help us understand better.
Sure. So I went to medical school wanting to be, a wonderful doctor. And along the way, I had to make some choices. What do I really want to be? Not just a doctor. So I chose neurology. And then within neurology, taking care of conditions like migraines and multiple sclerosis, dementia, I realized all those patients did better when they slept. So when they got a good night's sleep, they actually felt better. It's not like they got cured of their illness, but a lot of things did, like migraines significantly improved, things like this. So it made me want to study sleep medicine. And so that's why I decided to get my fellowship in sleep medicine. And then, when I got into sleep medicine, I have patients taking things over the counter, which I didn't really know a whole lot about. Melatonin we knew, but I still didn't understand a lot of things about like valerian root and L-theanine and other things that people found over the shelf, which made me want to then study a little bit more about the herbs and integrative medicine fellowship through Andrew Weil at University of Arizona. So I learned a lot more there than just herbs, of course, like nutrition and acupuncture and how those different tools and modalities can improve sleep and improve, your health and wellness. And so overall, it was a very great blend of how I try to incorporate these techniques and tools into the patients that I see.
That's incredible.
Amazing. And that is basically the integrative medicine that you mentioned, right?
So, I still practice medicine, like I might have to prescribe medications, but in some cases, maybe like, let's say, for example, sleep. I'm not a big fan of sleeping pills per se. I want to address kind of the root cause. What really is going on with that person, and what do we need to really do to help them sleep naturally? Mm-hmm. So sometimes it could be that, yes, it might be that you might need a sleeping pill, but oftentimes it's like, well, maybe you're deficient in something, or maybe you have extra stress, and we need to combat that first to try to help you get to sleep and stay asleep. So it's kind of integrating different modalities to give you, the most benefit that you can have as your body trying to get natural things like sleep. We should all be able to hit our head on the pillow and go to sleep. It's a requirement that we have these days, and you can't live without getting a good night of sleep.
Right. And would you say like this is kind of like almost like the future of modern medicine? I think like in also other fields, we hear doctors talking about using, I wouldn't say like alternative approach, but also like lifestyle change as a tool to help their patients in treating their conditions or improving their health.
I certainly hope so. I mean, like if I was a patient, I would want to know all the different choices I have. And I think that's the kind of approach that I take is what would I be in that situation? What else what can I do? Can I at least try, right? Like at least give me a chance to try to get it healthier. It's not always a quicker fix, and I'm not trying to say that sometimes we do need like a little bit a rapid fix before we can try doing some other approaches, especially if you haven't slept well for, a long time. I might want to try to do a little bit of a rapid fix before we start convincing and showing that, listen, you can do these things. It takes a little bit longer, but integrating it together, I think you'll have a better outcome and long-term approach to this problem.
Okay. And if we just like go straight to the topic of sleep. Can you first explain what sleep is? Like, how do you describe the state of sleep?
Sleep is when you are not conscious, but you are still alive. So like your body's heart is beating and the brain is functioning. Just that as you fall into different stages of sleep, it requires a larger threshold to alert you and to get you out of that sleep. So, for example, as I first hit the head hits the pillow, I might be in like a lighter stage of sleep. If someone calls my name out, I might wake up, and then be able to bounce right out of bed. But if you catch me maybe into the deeper stages of my sleep when I'm in like a REM sleep or a deep sleep, it might require more than just calling my name out. And I might need to be tapped or kind of moved around a little bit, or a loud noise like a fire alarm or something like that, to kind of wake me out of that stage of sleep, because that's just the level of sleep that we would see, and that requires a lot larger arousal or awaking sounds to get you out of that.
Awesome. So basically, sleep has different like forms or different stages that
right.
we go through.
Yes. So, we have stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then we have REM sleep. And REM is REM, which stands for rapid eye movement. So it's kind of an interesting stage of sleep because the only thing that's really moving during that stage of sleep is your eyeballs and your diaphragm, which is your breathing muscles. So otherwise you should be paralyzed. Like no other body parts should be moving except for like this breathing and then your eyeballs if anyone's staring at you, which no one really does. But you might stare at your dog or something.
You don't know, but
Yeah, you never know. Yeah. Well, if you have a dog, you might, animals go through stages of sleep too. So, you can stare at your dog and then you can see what stage of sleep they're in. But really it's not like a looking thing. It's actually brain waves. So in a sleep study, for example, we put electrodes on your head and, we have wires on your body to monitor these, stages of sleep, your heart rate and your way of breathing, and so we know exactly what level of sleep what stage of sleep you're in, which has been always the gold standard, right? When we talk about what stage of sleep are you in, and if we compare it to something like a smartwatch or the IV, things like this, because all of these different digital tools have a slightly different algorithm as to how they're measuring sleep. And so we always want to kind of balance that with the gold standard, which is the brain waves and what it gives you.
And what is the different functions of these stages?
The different functions of stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 sleep. Yeah. Well, light sleep, I'm not sure it has a whole lot of function, but it helps you get into sleep. Stage 2, there's some repair and things like this going on. We think that, memory formation happens in all stages of sleep, but it's hard to prove. And so you might also say, some people might say it only happens in REM sleep. I think as we're learning like different functions of sleep, like more the procedural memory or, like how you learn how to ride a bike, things like that, may happen in REM sleep versus other factual things might happen in other stages of sleep, which is non-REM sleep. Stage 1, 2, and 3 is non-REM sleep. And so nonetheless, memory, I think, does consolidate when we're sleeping, because when we actually sleep, we're able to kind of, shampoo the brain, I guess, if you will, right? Is we're kind of getting rid of the toxins and we're kind of keeping the good stuff and strengthening those synapses and formations that are happening, these connections in the brain that are happening. And so that's another major function of sleep.
Okay, so basically processing what whatever we've been throughout the day, or like cleaning up our memories and stuff like that. How about like the restorative or healing power of sleep? I mean, you just mentioned at the beginning somewhere how important sleep is for health of your patients. Why is that? Why do you think that is? And are people even aware of the power of sleep in terms of healing our bodies, healing our brain, preventing future conditions?
Oh, I hope so. I mean, not everyone probably puts that level of emphasis.
Like hear about
Yeah,
it.
now they're gonna know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that everyone puts that priority on sleep, right? Because it's some people need to unwind before they go to bed, so they might watch TV, and they might watch too much TV because they're just kind of captivated into it. They might watch TV because they think they want to relax and then fall asleep on the couch, and then in the middle of the night realize, oh, I should go to sleep. And then they go to their bed and they can't sleep. And, again, is it part of their poor, sleep hygiene, as we call it, right? So we want to kind of keep a routine that our bodies used to. So I really try to encourage people to, get to bed on time. You want to try to minimize that light anyway. So, watching a TV program to help you fall asleep with the lights on in your TV room, in your room, and then no one turns that in your bedroom and no one turns the TV off, is not helping your melatonin, for example. So, we know that melatonin is a hormone that helps us sleep. And it usually peaks in the evening. So it has a circadian rhythm-ish effect to it. And if it sees light, your body perceives light, and then your body would shut down the melatonin production. And so that doesn't help you sleep, right? So that's why I really think that we should start minimizing that time that we're, watching TV and using electronics too close to bedtime. Kind of using, like softer light. Some people have, glasses to kind of block out some of the blue light. And so whatever it requires for you is good, but trying to minimize and doing some other things to help you relax rather than just, passive TV watching.
Or is like reading a book better, or because you still have to use the light, or is there any difference?
Well, so the light from your, like a lamp or something will probably be softer than the bright light from a TV or a computer screen. And then again, people can use, if they're reading on an iPad, they can kind of darken the lights out, things like this. They can wear glasses. So things to try to help minimize. I mean, you still need to be able to read the page, of course. Right. So there is going to be some light, but we're just trying to kind of bring it down a notch. Reading is great. I think, again, as long as you're not too stimulated from it, not going to get angry from it. So some people read, political papers and things, and it's like, well, I wouldn't recommend that, but something like maybe that, is not so going to make you angry or something like that. Something soothing, a story with, that's gets you engaged, but not too engaged, sort of thing. Writing a gratitude journal is another great way to just kind of relax and maybe planning out your things to do list, for the next day. So you're kind of efficient and organized. And then this way, if it's on the page, it's there, you can forget about it. You don't have to worry about all those thoughts of what you have to do the next day. Also sometimes can be very helpful.
Awesome. I always feel like I'm more organized when I'm going to bed. And I do a lot of to-do lists mental, and I'll write it out as well. And I feel like my brain almost functions and is more organized when I'm about to fall asleep. And I feel like I'm more able to, I don't know, just organize the day. I don't know if that's normal when you're like kind of like winding down, or if that's just a cute little weird quirk that I have. Who knows?
I just dropped that.
So,
interesting. Interesting. But like when we're already personal experience, we're all women here. Is there any difference between how women sleep and how men sleep? I mean, you just mentioned circadian rhythm. Does also our menstrual cycle, so infradian rhythms, influence our sleeping patterns throughout, different stages of menstrual cycle, or, the month, or, year. I don't know.
So, of course, women have had trouble with sleep ever since they have a menstrual cycle. So, it starts at very early ages, along with going into perimenopause, menopause. And the hormone fluctuations are part of, that contribution of poor sleep. But so are other, transition factors. As women have pregnancy, for example, having to take care of their newborn, their sleep can be disrupted. During perimenopause, now they're taking care of their young children as well as their older adult parents, and so so there is that caregiving piece to it as well, and all of these stressors, kind of add on to causing poor, disrupted sleep. But I think, again, we know that as estrogen drops, that can impact sleep. And into perimenopause, menopause, when women have that estrogen drop, it can also contribute to sleep apnea, which nobody ever wants to have. Especially women. Women do not want to snore, and but unfortunately, it's again a hormonal thing that can make them.
Confess, she's a snorer.
I'm a snorer.
It's all the women in my family snore, so something to
So it's okay. If you snore, it's okay.
Well, so snoring can be okay, but snoring can also be a red flag that something underlying is happening. Because again, if you're just snoring, that's just kind of air through your, nasal passage, and a noise that's being made. But if you actually stop breathing, then snort, right? That's a bigger problem. And so you never want to not give your body oxygenation. And something like, snoring, sleep apnea can contribute to, can happen to women. Women tend to get it in later stages of life because, again, maybe the hormonal changes and things that happen with the lack of estrogen. But it can also contribute to things like heart disease and dementia and and so we want to try to keep up on that, because I think it's an important piece that women can take some preventative efforts for. We have the technology, we have the tools to treat. It doesn't always have to be CPAP, which nobody likes, having to wear a big mask on their face, but it does work, and so we shouldn't be afraid of that technology if these life changes are happening to us.
Can also so one indicator is snoring, but obviously if we're sleeping alone, we might not even be aware that we're snoring. Can tracking technology, tracking your sleep with things like IV, smartwatches, so wearables, help you kind of discover any concerning patterns?
So I have not found that I hope so. I wish that the digital tools will allow that, because it does happen, right? Unless you go on a trip with a girlfriend or, another, whatever, your husband has to tell you, or some other person has to tell you that you're snoring, because you're not conscious. You don't hear yourself. You might wake up feeling tired, not rested, and that can be a sign. But a lot of times women don't even realize they have sleep apnea because they just kind of go. They're just they're just doers. Women don't stop, right? So things get done the next day, no matter how tired the woman is.
Mm-hmm. And how is that sorry, you just mentioned also transitional periods in women's life, like motherhood. So I just became a mom 5 months ago. So I'm just in this phase of, not sleeping at all practically.
Yeah.
And I'm so surprised about how well I'm functioning actually. Before, if I didn't get my 7 hours of sleep in, I would be totally dysfunctional. But right now, I'm barely getting maybe 5 hours of sleep, and even that is not in one piece. And still, I'm a pretty functional.
You're functioning really well.
Adult. I'm taking care of a baby. He's still, well and alive and everything.
You're running a business.
So I'm also working. And then I also hear that women actually need more sleep than men. So in terms of quantity, if that's true, but how is that even possible? And how is this evolutionary? How is that part of evolution that we have to sleep more and we need restorative sleep, but then we are constantly lacking in sleep. How? What is wrong with us?
What is this?
What is this? And also, what is this magic that we're still alive and are able to take care of our young?
Yeah, and yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I hope you stay alive and healthy, right? So usually when people are sleep deprived, they, again, acute sleep deprivation, you can handle it, if you did one night, where you didn't get enough sleep. But chronic sleep deprivation, when we talk about when you're just constantly, depriving yourself of sleep, does impact women and men, where hormone changes, you can increase something hormone called ghrelin, makes you feel hungry. Leptin usually makes you feel full. And so obviously when you don't get enough sleep, leptin goes down, ghrelin goes up, you gain weight, and you can put yourself at risk for high blood pressure, heart attack, stroke, down the line. So again, it's not going to happen from one night usually, but if you're chronically depriving yourself, you're kind of setting yourself up to getting these problems like diabetes and high blood pressure, heart attack, and down that line. Memory problems, right? So again, we might have some, I can't remember things, but real dementia may not hit until another 20 years, which is not a whole lot of time if you think about it. And so again, there are things you can be doing to work on preventing that kind of problem. So hopefully you're getting some, again, you might not be able to sleep through the night because of your child. And that's just something that has to happen. Hopefully you also have a partner or someone else that can help you, with some of that night awakenings. And then hopefully you're able to take a little quick nap, during the day so that you can kind of protect getting enough sleep. We have to make it work. And you are, obviously, you're kind of going. But, if you don't take a break, life will decide when you take a break. I hate to say it so positively.
Yeah, that's good. Basically, I'm running on adrenaline. Yeah.
Actually, I have a question. This reminded me of this TikTok that I saw. In part of our podcast series, we do a bunch of suspicious wellness. And I saw a TikTok clip where it talked about mothers who have boys. Sometimes this TikTok said that the genetic material goes inside of the mother's brain, and it could cause some sort of it says it could lead to potential basically the genes of the child are in the brain and it stays there, and it could become into an Alzheimer's or a type of dementia state later in life. And so this TikTok, which is questionable, but some people from our audience wanted to ask about it and just know a little bit more about it. Is this something that's actually true? Is it true that, when you have a baby, those genes could potentially, or
that our children destroy us,
that our children destroy our brain? Yeah, because through it's a very weird question, I understand, but yeah. So is it true that you can't get dementia because you have a child, or a baby boy?
I have not heard that, so I am not okay. I'm not sure even where that is stemming from. We do have there is one particular gene for dementia. It's called the apolipoprotein E gene, and it does put you at higher, one of the alleles puts you at higher risk for developing dementia. So if you particularly have that family history and that gene got passed down to you, and you happen to be the the mother, you can still it doesn't matter about the child. It doesn't matter if you're a mother. You already have that gene because it passed on from the family, right?
Okay, so there's no direct correlation between having children and your brain health, or at least not.
No, I mean, I think, again, having children has been, something that has happened over generations, right? And that's okay. It's how you take care of yourself. When my parents were growing up, they had a village to take care of people, right? And so here we have less help, I think. So my parents grew up in India. They had neighbors and friends. All their family members. Anyone can help contribute. But when they came here to America, they didn't have as much help. So, they had to rely on friends and some other resources, which I wasn't privy to, but I'm not sure how they managed it. And I feel like we even have less than that, right? So raising my children, I was like, well, who's going to help me, right? Because I don't live in a village, right? I live in a community, in a city, but like my neighbors are not my family members who are able to just drop what they're doing and come take care of my child or take him or her to the park or whatever the case may be. And so we have to balance our time out a little bit more, especially if you're a working woman and have children, and so this, the stressors of life are certainly there and can contribute to sleep.
Yeah, and apart from sleep, you just mentioned the circumstances that have impact on our stress and lifestyle. So apart from sleep, how does stress of leading a modern lifestyle, let's say, or living in modern circumstances where we're often alone or under a lot of pressure, doing a lot of things at the same time, alone again, contribute to poor, let's say, brain health and potential diseases down the line?
No, I mean, it doesn't have to lead to poor brain health, right? I mean, we have to learn how to balance our life and taking those rest breaks, and not telling anyone to just like quit their career and only raise children or not have children and only have a career, right? Like, I'm not saying that at all. I think it's just finding that right balance, getting the right support, using friends, using family, whoever you can, but don't feel like you have to do it all alone, and I think, reaching out to people, especially if you are, your primary care doctor, especially if you're not sleeping well, there are things that strategies we can start doing. If your hormones are off, if your menstrual cycle is off, right? Like, those are things that you should be talking about to your primary care doctor so that we can help you fix those things. Can't help you fix your family and friends, that's but hopefully make my mom help me right raise this child. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you something about, so you mentioned diet as well, right? And that ties to gut health. What is the correlation between brain health and gut health? And then down the line, obviously also menstrual cycle, because this is a special topic that our audience and we are interested in.
Yeah, so a lot of neurodegenerative diseases, things like Parkinson's and dementia, we feel actually start in the gut. And so our bacteria that live in the gut are hopefully good bacteria, but we could get bad bacteria. And so if you have more bad bacteria than good bacteria, that balance can be off and you might have some digestive troubles. And sometimes we don't address that, right? And so we wait for things to happen. And why the gut is so important is because a lot of our neurotransmitters are made in the gut. So our mood hormone is made in the gut, serotonin, like a good chunk of it, 85%. I don't remember the percentage, but like a good chunk of it is made in the gut, right? So something like mood, depression, is not necessarily from the brain. It starts in the gut. And if you're not making enough, then that can be a problem, right? So we make our fatty acids, things that protect the brain, in our gut. And so having a good diet is very helpful. So you can really get that good bacteria. So are we, just the vehicle for these gut bacteria? Or are we the host? Or, like, what's going on here? Like, who's in charge? And so again, having that balanced diet really helps feed the gut. And it's a nice, good cycle that you have.
And it's also the cycle that is tied back to sleep, right? I've heard that if you are poor sleeper or sleep deprived, you're more prone to bad diet choices, right? You choose more to eat more carbs or fatty foods. So it's, yeah, who's in charge here?
Who's in charge?
Yeah, who is in charge? So that's why I kind of going back to those hormones. When you don't get a good night's sleep, the hormone that makes you want to eat more goes up.
Right.
And then you tend not to eat, like, you're not going to eat your salad when you're hungry, right? So we have studies on that. People who are like, we made them be sleep deprived. Doctors are great with that, especially in training, right? Like we can kind of
Right.
study them. And when they wake up after not getting good night's sleep over a week's time, what do they tend to go for? They tend to go for those fattier foods, sugary foods. And then, it's kind of like a cycle where they're just not getting good sleep because they're not fueling with the right foods. And so you really want to think about fiber, and, fiber is not going to hurt you. You're not going to, it's not like if I say, go eat more salads, you're going to have some major disruption in your body. If I say, go get exercise, that's another good thing that can help you with hormone balancing as well as getting good sleep. And, you can exercise too much, but certainly not what most people do, right? So again, get up, go do some 30-minute of movement and get back to work kind of thing.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think in terms of exercise, there's been now more talk, especially in fitness for women, that it's more, it used to be more recommended to do, like experts used to talk about talked a lot about cardio workout and the health, implications of.
Sorry, she's like, I'm not sleeping, but I'm functioning.
Sorry, I'm not functioning. So what I was trying to say is that in terms of exercise, experts used to recommend more cardio, especially to women, but now there's been more talk about benefits of strength workouts and things like correlations between your grip strength and longevity and brain health, and correlations between strength training and osteoporosis, especially in women.
Or perimenopausal and menopausal,
exactly. Do you know like any more about that? Like why is now like strength training so much so much more recommended than it used to be?
Is it healthier? Yeah, for the mind and for sleep, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what the research is showing, that strength training is actually very good. Women start losing muscle mass by like the age of 35. It starts declining. We don't lose all our muscle mass, but it starts declining at such a young age, I feel. Right?
We're approaching 35.
So you can't start strength training like early enough, like you should have started yesterday kind of thing is kind of how the research makes it sound, right? So definitely you want to preserve that muscle by strength training, and it doesn't have to be like heavy weights. I think women tended to think that if I lift heavy weights, I'm going to bulk up and look like those bulky men, and it turns out that that's probably not true, right? So we're using lighter weights. So we're using lighter weights, more frequency, as opposed to very heavy, weight. But again, you can use heavier weights as you're training and you're strengthening. Certainly don't want to, make you hurt yourself, by doing something bad. But slow going into it slow and kind of building on that strength is what I would always suggest. Especially as women, we do need that muscle mass and we don't want to lose it. Muscle, turns out, is, also secretes neurotransmitters and hormones, and so it kind of helps us with keeping ourselves healthy and balanced. And we know that there's a hormone called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So when we exercise, we're growing this BDNF, and it's like miracle grow in our brain, like we're growing neurons, we're strengthening neuron strength. And so muscle mass is, the exercise that you're doing is not only helping like below the neck, it's also helping above the neck. Yeah.
That's really cool. Oh.
Interesting. I love that because I love strength training
loves
more than
that.
cardio.
One more excuse not to
I was
run.
just like,
All
I'm
right.
just collecting this, like, the proof of me being right. When we're with that already, so now basically in this company we're creating technology for tracking sleep, but also workout and lifestyle. And as I understand, I mean, we also understand that now you as a doctor and a lot of other doctors that we talk about digitalization in healthcare and utilizing all the data that we collect from different sensors and devices that users can use to integrate into their practices for better understanding of their patients' needs and adjusting their care for them. So what is kind of like your vision of how we can use technology and data in your practices? Also, I'm just talking about also preventive care towards Alzheimer's. Sorry, I'm here. And brain health and the longevity in general.
Yeah, so I am really optimistic about digital tools. I, do find that it's probably lacking a little bit, in terms of being able to make something very actionable. Of course, if my heart rate is up and I'm like always high heart rate, and I have something like tachycardia, that's definitely useful. But I don't know how much that happens to everybody, right? So what other measures do I want my digital technology to tell me? And I think that's what we need to kind of figure out. What's useful? Could blood pressure tracking, or I don't know. The sleep is helpful too. Like especially if I know I'm not getting good night's sleep and I'm trying things and then seeing the changes that it makes. But so far, my problem has been with sleep is that I'm not sure it's accurately measuring it. What if you feel you slept great and then, the device tells you you didn't? So that's kind of a mismatch. And that also throws people off, in terms of seeking treatment to try to fix the watch rather than fix how they feel. So I want it to be accurate and useful and actionable, and I think we're going in that direction, but I think we just need to keep asking what do patients really want, so that we can build it the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great point, because this is something I think that we kind of deal a lot with and struggle with in the company as well. When we're creating this technology, we're getting, big sets of data and all this kind of data, but now, you need to tie it into actionable information, something that the user knows how to use in their everyday life, but then also correlate that to what the user actually feels. That was a really great point. It's really hard to sometimes data says something, but the user
feels
differently. And it might be like there's a difference also between how they feel in that moment, but then how they start to feel down the line. Often, data can be showing underlying issue before
sort
the
of
user.
predictive.
Especially like how I had in pregnancy when I had bleeding in at 32 weeks, and I was feeling fine just a couple of days before, but my readiness dropped significantly. And
the data showed there was a problem.
Exactly. So my cardiac appearance was, just awful. To that point that actually my engineers that are reviewing my data all the time, because we use it for sampling and analysis and so forth, called me and were like, "Are you okay?" And then the next day I was in hospital, actually. But I felt okay in that moment. It took me a while, like, for my brain to realize that my body wasn't doing very well. Like there's incredible power in data, but now we need to kind of become better in translating it and correlating it with what happens when and how users feel, and so forth.
How to bridge that gap between it. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think these digital tools are going away, so I think, in fact, it's probably growing. I think the wellness category of digital tools, at least, a lot of people I know at least have some form of tracking device. And so I think, again, it's not going away. We just need to now, kind of filter it so that we're giving useful information. As for, developing dementia, because I think that was the second part of your question, I think these lifestyle changes that we make and the tools we get are going to be very helpful. There's a number out there that say about 50% of dementia can be cured by lifestyle changes. So again, we can prevent, I don't know about cure, but we can certainly try to help not get dementia. Maybe 50% of that population that's going to develop it, could just change their lifestyle, and that can improve them not getting the disease. That would be amazing, right? Because like the drugs so far, there's lots of promising drugs coming out, but like up until now, until I see how those drugs work out, the drugs have not been effective. And so again, if we can exercise, if we can get good sleep, if we get good nutrition, that is a big starting point in terms of moving to the direction of lifestyle changes, and not having something like as bad as Alzheimer's disease. I also think reducing stress. So I like how the IV has that component to it, right? And so using meditation or just unwinding somehow, which we touched on a little bit, like a gratitude journal or a things to do list, or other ways, relaxing in a bath, or whatever makes you feel good. But bringing that stress down is always going to be a good strategy as well. We know stress causes a lot of diseases, and dementia being on the list as well.
And when should that prevention start? Like, when should we start thinking about these things?
Yesterday.
So the problem with dementia is that there are these proteins, you might have heard of them, amyloid and tau. They start accumulating in our brains, like they say, as early as 20 years of age. So, at 20, you're invincible. You don't have any memory problems, and there's nothing wrong with you. So we don't realize all the damage we're doing. It's not until like you're maybe in your 40s and 50s that you're like, I don't feel so good, right? But by that point, you've already accumulated those toxins. So really, I would like people to get good sleep so that those toxins can get shampooed out every single night, right? Like, there's no need to wait till you're 40 to start the shampoo. We should be doing this early and making sure that we're getting good sleep. So children, there's different requirements for based on age that the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, has put out, and you can find that in journals. And I don't remember the age ranges right now, but like a good chunk of them, when they're like 5 to 10, require at least 10 to 11 hours of sleep. And yours is still a newborn, so sleeping most of the day.
Most of the day, he does not sleep at all. So I don't know how that works. Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully still 3 naps, mini naps maybe.
No, like, I don't know. My baby does not sleep. I mean, he sleeps obviously, but it's very little throughout the night and throughout the day as well. He's just so charged up. I don't know where he gets his energy from. I mean, both my partner and I are energetic people, but still, he runs us both to the ground every day, every single day.
It's like a little superhero baby.
A little superhero baby. I don't know. His like 5-minute naps are literally power naps, super power naps.
Wow.
I don't know. Hopefully
she's like, girl.
That makes it tougher.
I don't know. He looks fine though.
Yeah.
He looks fine and happy. But yeah, I'm not.
Fine.
I'm not even drinking any caffeine or anything. So I don't know.
It's natural, pure
on.
natural
Just
energy.
Pure natural adrenaline. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, sometimes for example, when I don't sleep well, it's like I know if I exercise and do that routinely that I will improve my sleep. And
Yeah.
so kind of like your baby's only 5 months, so not quite running yet, but uh,
I'm trying to like exercise him to
Okay.
sleep. So we do a lot of exercising with him, like all that like tummy time and rolling, everything we can
Lots
think
of
of.
play.
Lots of play, lots of play. Like we're just trying to really
Exhaust them.
exhaust him. Yeah, between naps, we're trying to exhaust.
But you're
him.
exhausting yourselves.
We're exhausting ourselves. I don't know, but it's literally funny. Like in the evening, we're trying so hard to play with him and like run him, out of energy. But still, he's just so resilient. He's such a strong baby. I don't know.
which can be tough, right? Like again, you're not getting good sleep because you also have to take care of your child, and how do you get those little naps in for you to sustain yourself? All things that you hopefully will fall into a groove and find some ways to stay alert and happy and get the requirements of sleep and rest that you need. So.
How much should actually an adult woman sleep, or an adult person?
Yeah, so we kind of digressed, but women and men need the same amount of sleep, right? It's just that everyone's an individual. And
Mhm.
so generally, the requirements are 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And so individually, I might need more than you, or you might need more than me, that kind of thing. But just generally where the average person should be getting in terms of our studies, we have lots of research studies that show people who sleep less than that or more than that don't do so well brain wise, of course. And so less than that, we know, especially less than 6 hours, consistently. So again, not every night, not just once in a while, but like consistently getting less than 6 hours of sleep does increase your risk of developing dementia. And then getting more than 9 hours of sleep. The research study that I'm kind of referring to also looked at PET scans. So they looked at all this, accumulation of protein, and they didn't see necessarily dementia greater than 9 hours, but they did see executive function problems. So again, just not being able to piece together things, maybe recalling names, things like that, but not to the level of not being able to take care of your daily activities of life like a dementia patient would. So 7 to 9 is that sweet spot, is what we're really looking for. And men and women don't matter, but we still want that quality of sleep. So, ideally we want circadian rhythm. We want you to find a bedtime that works for you and kind of stick to it. I think between 10 and midnight is a good hour for people to be going to sleep. And so kind of keeping your bedtime in that range, and then waking up at the same time, getting that sunlight exposure so that we can keep our circadian rhythm in sync. Our sun comes through our eyes and it goes into the main circadian pacemaker. The suprachiasmatic nucleus is a nice big word, right? But that's the master clock right behind our eyes, and so that's where we get light, and it tells us it's day, and it starts the functions of all these hormone changes, right? Like cortisol will be higher in the morning and should kind of gradually come down as the day goes on, and then melatonin kind of peaks at night as it starts seeing darkness. So as the sun sets, we start seeing darkness. Of course, in the summertime, we have a lot more light. But the bedtime still is the same, I hope. And, but because of that extra light, our bedtime can be a little bit delayed. And that's like a big topic of discussion. Should we all switch to standard time? Should we have these time changes like daylight savings times and standard time? And so it's a big discussion here, but it's, and again, part of our need is that we need that circadian rhythm. We need that sleep drive. We need to be tired enough to get to bed. So if you take a really long nap, you're recharging your battery a little bit too soon, and then therefore have a harder time going to sleep at night. So we want to keep that circadian rhythm, that homeostatic drive in balance. eating well, exercising, those are things that kind of keep all of this in nice rhythm as well. Like I said, eating well helps you with the neurotransmitters in your gut, keeps the microbiome, the good bacteria kind of helping you make all the neurotransmitters and keeping your gut in balance.
What does then happen when we're jet lagged, for example?
Yeah, so your rhythm is here, and then your time zone is over here, so you kind of have to catch up. So I'm just going to talk about if I'm going east, right? So east is ahead, and so I'm a little behind, being in the States, and then I'm trying to go to Europe, and that's some hours in advance. So I have to try to speed my circadian rhythm up to match the new time zone, and so that requires some adjusting, especially if you're traveling. Hopefully just, one travel, but I have patients who travel all the time. They're just constantly between East and West. And so naturally they might have some more difficulties with falling asleep, staying asleep, because they don't have a set rhythm.
Can taking melatonin, for example, then help them? Is that recommended, or is just then, getting you used to this substance and might get you in trouble?
So again, I might use melatonin strategically to help with jet lag specifically. I think that's the best indication for melatonin. I'm not a big fan of keeping people on melatonin forever. Like, everyone does not need melatonin. Children do not need melatonin typically. Again, I'd like to try to keep that as natural as possible. There are some side effects with melatonin. So, again, it's not something that I would like to keep someone on long term. So if we need it strategically to help with jet lag, I think that's the best reason to be on melatonin.
Yeah, I sometimes use it as well, but for me, jet lag, like the best cure for jet lag is working out.
Oh, okay.
I often get like a really intense workout in before trying to fall asleep, and that helps.
I just don't sleep. No. I wake up because I go between Europe and Arkansas a bit. And so I wake up usually around like 4 a.m. for my flight, because it's always at 6 a.m. I don't know why, but that's just the way the gods made it. And so I wake up at 6, and usually I'll land around like 11 p.m., Central Time. And so it's quite a big gap, and I'm losing a lot of precious time that I could be sleeping. And people say sleep on the plane, but for the 20 hours that I'm traveling, I just don't sleep. And then I usually go to bed around 8, 9 p.m. I guess 11 p.m. when I get there. So like midnight. But then the next night, I kind of fall asleep around 9 p.m. And I don't know if it's healthy or not, but I usually just kind of skip a cycle and then try to fall asleep the next night. And it's worked out so far for me. We'll see in a few years what happens to my brain health, but I don't recommend it. Probably it's probably not that healthy. But
and that might be a way to help you kind of resync faster, rather than taking some naps. And again, I don't know what one night really does, but we know that chronic, again, some people don't sleep well Monday through Friday or whatever. It'd be like Sunday to Thursday during the work week. They can kind of deprive themselves of sleep and then try to make it up on the weekends. And we're kind of saying, no, you really can't make it up. Even like that 15 minutes, cut short of sleep during the weekdays does impact your hormones.
Yeah.
And so, we want you to be kind of, aware of that at least. And so that this way, again, if there are things that you can do differently, I highly encourage it. Sometimes you're stuck in the airport, your flight's delayed, what are you going to do? You can't sleep standing up. So, so there are circumstances where you just can't control it, but hopefully that's not what I'm talking about for majority of the people. Majority of the people are intentionally depriving themselves of sleep just because, I don't know, they have like fear of missing out or something, so, so I think, going back to our first point is hopefully people are aware that sleep makes a big difference in your health. And so kind of making that a nice strategy into your day-to-day outcomes and what you're doing daily.
And I think like if we tie back to traveling, if we were already talking about it, is it true that we don't sleep as well as we do at home in hotel rooms or other environments that are new to us?
I mean, everyone's different. Some people might sleep well, but we might not sleep well in a new environment as well. We see that in the sleep lab quite a bit, but again, is it because of all the wires and things? It's hard to know for sure, but there is a little bit of that. I'm in a new place. You might not like your bed. You might not like your pillow. Might not like the temperature. It might not be dark enough. There's a lot of variables in terms of how we control that space and the lack of control that we don't have when we're in a hotel room.
Okay, so it's not that we're afraid that something is going to eat us in an unknown environment.
Not some biological thing from our Neanderthal days.
Some more exciting, evolutionary reason. All right, and is there any truth also in the thing that like somebody is a morning person, another person is an evening person? Like, are our schedules really different in how we function?
Yes, there are morning people and evening people. I happen to be a morning person, but I think I don't know. I don't have enough data to really say that one is better than the other. So far, some of the studies that I have read, being a morning person does put you in more sync with the circadian rhythm, and ultimately may be better for you. But I'm not sure how late that late person is sleeping, right? So again, I told you that I like the bedtime to be between 10 p.m. and midnight. And if you're going to sleep, specifically regularly at like 3 p.m., 3 a.m., things like that, we have yet to study that in more detail to let me tell you something more definitive here. But we know, night shift workers, for example, nurses, all the other professionals that may work night shifts, may not sleep as well, because again, they're sleeping during the day and the sun is out. And so again, is there room and environment good enough to kind of block out that light and get, is there lots of noise going on? What do they do? How is their room and what is their sleep like to be able to block out some of that extra stuff?
Mm-hmm. With talking about the environment, what would you say or what would you recommend is the most ideal sleeping environment for somebody? Obviously, we talked about blue light and minimizing that, but when it comes to temperature, maybe even bedding, what's the ideal environment that you would recommend?
Cool. I think, especially women during perimenopause, menopause, they might be having some hot flashes. And so having a cool environment is definitely going to be good for you. Maybe having a fan on just to kind of keep that air moving in there, circulating. So I think that's going to be a good tip. Sheets come in all different kinds, but you probably want like more cooling sheets, especially if you're having some hot flashes and run hot. And so I think that's some other tips that I can share there.
That's
awesome. We kind of went through everything. Maybe just also in general, not tied to sleep. We talked about the differences between, men and women, how we sleep, or there's not like that many differences. But in terms of brain health in general and developing dementia and Alzheimer's, is there any difference between men and women? Are women more prone to this kind of diseases or less maybe?
So, the data say that women have more Alzheimer's, and part of that could be that, we live longer, right? That's one of the potential things is we live longer. And so therefore, dementia is something that happens in our older ages of life. But that doesn't always, hold the story. Men obviously have some dementia too. And, how much does genes impact us, and how much do these other risk factors depression,
Right.
high blood pressure, high cholesterol, how do those things kind of play a role into the whole thing? And so we don't exactly know why women have more dementia, but usually the counts are definitely higher for women to develop it.
Fascinating. Interesting, because I would say, like, top of my head, I would say that women are better at prevention as well, or like more engaged in self-care and taking care of them, taking care of ourselves. But maybe we're also wasting ourselves a lot on stress and taking care of others, and it might be
higher cortisol levels, higher stress levels.
it might be leaving a toll on our health.
Oof.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Like we don't track stress. What does stress feel like? Like I can feel my heart beating fast, but I can't feel stress levels rising.
Right.
I know if I overthink things that can be stressful, but what else? What else is? And so without actually having some indicators of what my adrenal health is like, I would encourage every woman in that phases of life, especially in their perimenopause, menopause years, to really take care of their stress levels and adrenal health, because that might mean something down the line. And so again, when you're most stressed is probably those years when you're caregiving for both sides and you're also trying to work and just balance everything. You're also going through your estrogen drop, like lots of things are happening biologically, environmentally, lifestyle wise, things like this, right? And so it's a really good time to kind of think about just let's take a little break. Let's see where I can readjust things. How do I take care of my adrenal gland, which is really important because that's the one that brings out the cortisol and shoots out all those stress hormones, right? So I think that's another point that would be good for all women to kind of start taking care of themselves earlier, but especially in those decades, 40s and 50s.
Yeah. I mean, before that, I guess a great indicator of, stress or overall health, apart from heart rate, could also be menstrual cycle, right? That also get disrupted if we're under a lot of stress, or we're under hormonal disbalance. So I guess another reason for women to track and map out their cycles and pay attention to what is going on there.
Good indicator, yeah.
Yep.
As far as, so this is a little way off topic, of course, but we love to ask all of our guests this. When it comes to literature or reading anything about within your expertise or interest, what would you recommend as some good literature if people want to learn more either about, I mean, I know this is a widespread, but either about neurology, if they want to learn more about sleep, sleep medicine, or prevention of
dementia, Alzheimer's.
What would you recommend? What are some good literatures for our audience?
So I like the websites because they're kind of updated and, I think compared to like a book, which might get outdated, but the American Academy of Sleep Medicine is a fantastic site for patients and also for providers. I also feel there's the National Sleep Foundation. They do a really good job of answering sleep-related questions. In terms of brain health, dementia prevention, things like this, I think the American Academy of Neurology would be a good place to get factual science and things like this. I always try to write something a lot about brain and sleep health as well. So
anything by you, of course. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, hopefully I'm able to, weed out the bad information and kind of just give you the good stuff. Yes. So
awesome.
Wonderful.
And to also end the conversation on an actionable note, what would be your recommendation to our audience in terms of things they can do for themselves? So 3 things they should start doing and 3 things they should stop doing in their life to better their brain health, to better sleep, to live longer, whatever you think is the most important.
Okay. So top 3 that I would encourage you to do is number one is exercise. And there's a tie for number two, which is get good sleep and eat healthy. I can't decide which one's more important, but they're both important. So exercise, sleep, and diet. And a diet, when I say, is, really high in vegetables, fruits, nuts and seeds, good fats. So omega-3s are really important for brain health as well. And so if you don't eat fish, we got to think of plant-based ways of getting omega-3s, which is like hemp seeds. Yeah, so we got to go that way. Algae, I just don't have a great algae source, right? So, so I kind of was like thinking, should I say it or not say it? But nonetheless, I think those are some important elements, right? In terms of what not to do, definitely don't stress, right? So stress can be a bad I also think alcohol is my, next bad thing. I have really limited good information on drinking alcohol. I know that a long time ago, we probably said it's okay for women to drink 1 glass of red wine and men can have 2 glasses of red wine. And,
just kidding.
The literature on alcohol has not been very good in terms of any amount of alcohol really being that brain healthy. So, so these days, I'm really saying watch what you drink. Especially like not too much alcohol. I think especially in perimenopause, menopause, I don't think it helps the hot flashes at all.
Right.
Drinking too much caffeine may also be bad for you. It might just cover up that you're not getting good sleep. And so, you drink some caffeine to kind of get you through the day and you keep running around, but are you paying attention to how you really feel? Are you fatigued? Things like that. So I could have no stress, no alcohol, no caffeine, or limit caffeine as the do nots, but I think I would say avoid long naps. Sometimes I think if you don't get a good night's sleep, we tend to sleep for hours during the day. And I would say probably limit it to 15, 20 minutes as your max. So
you're going to devastate a lot of people when they hear that. You do understand.
I know. Well, I mean, I'm just going by what the science is really saying is that you want to kind of keep that circadian rhythm and flow and kind of get yourself to get the proper rest you need.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Really wonderful, good, valuable advice. Yeah.
I like that. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Patel. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really enjoyed having you, and I know our listeners are going to enjoy listening to you and have enjoyed listening to you.
Yeah, I think it was an awesome episode. Thank you so much again for your time and accepting our invitation. And we look forward to creating more content with you as our expert and asking you all the tough questions that we need to ask when developing technology for tracking health of women.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure to be here and spread, information that people can use and apply to their health to stay well, healthy. I think a lot of times we tend to only take care of acute problems, like I'm having a problem, but we can stay on the preventative side and kind of just stay healthy and stay well. And that's what I wish for everybody. So
excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.